Welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast with your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com, providing tips and the latest trends in the world of marketing.
And welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com. And today we're going to have Doug DeVitri on. He is the author of Screen-to-Screen Selling, a great book on how to use technology to increase your sales. How are you doing today, Doug?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you having me.
No, I appreciate you coming on. Well, give us a quick overview of the book for the listeners, and then we can jump right into things here.
Yeah, so, I wrote Screen-to-Screen Selling because the tremendous need of us to be able to get the job done without being physically present. We have time demands, we have pressure demands, we have bounded by geographic constraints, depending on what type of customers you might be working with. And really, me writing the book was a summarize of me through trial and error, improving the process of really focusing on the customer, building value, conceptualizing value, and really increasing the outcomes that they've been trying to figure out how to do. Whether they're, using some of their existing resources, using some of their existing talent. So that's kind of the summary in a nutshell for you.
Great. And for those listening out here, we are going to be giving away a free copy of the book today. Just listen throughout the podcast, and we'll tell you exactly how to get your hands on a copy of it. Now, I'm glad I read this book. It basically, I'm not going to share you all of my little tips and techniques, so you can get into that. But people really need to understand that you're not confined to your hometown or your home office. I mean, thanks to technology, you can go as far or as close as you want. I mean, I work on an international level, you as well, so you don't have to get on an airplane and fly halfway across the world in order to get clients internationally, correct?
Yeah, well, gosh, I kind of started off maybe a little different than most people probably would. I was the one who was on the plane. I spent 180 days on the road for 5 years in a row, hitting the market, beating the street, working with clients, on-site client visits. So I've already had those relationships kind of in place. But with me having my family, our son was just born earlier this year. I wanted to be able to take time, spending more time at home and more with my family. And, I've been successfully able to maintain that without compromising the value that I deliver to my clients.
Absolutely. And I like the book, how it talks about basically you're going to be getting into, instead of confining yourself, you're kind of bringing back some of that old world face-to-face. Again, that's the difference between face-to-face and screen-to-screen. It's kind of bringing back some of those old world techniques of the traveling and meeting face-to-face and bringing it into the new age of technology, so you can actually not have to do all that traveling, yet still have some of that personal feeling using some of the new technology. So well, let's talk about a basic setup. What are we looking at here as far as some of the tools and some of the costs? Because I know, people out there are thinking, wow, I don't have time to get a full multimedia setup, but I think they really need to understand this could be from a low-scale, work out of your home type thing all the way up to Fortune 500 clients connecting with people across the world.
Yeah, sure. So as far as tools goes, there's a lot of tools that are listed in the book, and I recommend everybody get a copy of it. But more importantly than any tool that you have, what we need to focus on, especially with sales, is focusing on what tools does the customer familiar with. If right now we're having a conversation on Skype. But I wouldn't, if you were my customer and you weren't on Skype, I wouldn't force you to create a Skype account and a profile just to have a conversation. You should probably wouldn't do that. So what we need to do is first figure out what tools are the customers most familiar with, and if they don't, then let's find in our own little toolkit what are some one or two tools that we can be really familiar with, both inside and out, but also that are usable. Two tools that I'll give you right now are Join.me. It's a simple screen sharing tool where you don't need the app to download it in order to have that conversation. And then also Zoom.us is my other favorite based video conferencing tool that, people tell me, gosh, it was so easy to start that conversation, I think, when we look at some problems, sometimes the technology can get in the way of having a conversation if we don't have user-friendly tools, or that requires a customer to download, some specific software. They have to do a software update in order to talk.
Absolutely.
They say that the average conversation online takes about 10 minutes for us to start on time. Well, if we're spending all this time troubleshooting with technology, then we kind of lost the purpose of what we're actually trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And you kind of got into my next talking point there was, you got to make sure your clients, customers are on board with this as well. You can't just tell them, okay, we're going to have a quick face-to-face call. That sounds great. But if they need 20-page instructions, download this, you're going to need to buy this equipment, you're going to need to do this. It becomes very complicated, and people don't like complications. If they get into those, they just don't want to work with you. So, giving them something easy, making sure you know what they're familiar with. These are great. These are great tools in order to get them on board. So, now, when you're in these presentations, what are some of the type of forms that you would recommend using as far as for the presentation? I mean, you're online, you're doing the screen-to-screen with people now. What are some of your favorite tools to use, some of your favorite forms?
Well, one of the things that I think is important to get into is before even the tools are considered is the amount of trust that's necessary in order to have the screen-to-screen type of conversation. If I were going to call you on the telephone, you might pick up and we might have a quick conversation. But then again, if I ask you to actually go on a ride with me, to share my screen with you, and that's the first time that we talked, you might be a little bit apprehensive about it, even if you have to download something. So what we have to do, especially in sales, is to really figure out when is the right time to initiate that type of screen sharing. And maybe it's not on the first call. Maybe you have a phone conversation, and then that it's not the right time to ask if the screen share is if it's worthwhile even exploring. So, as far as building trust, gradually, once you're able to do that, then what we can do is position it in the customer's best interest to do a screen share. So in other words, I could say to you, Mike, we can have this conversation. In fact, some of my best clients ask this all the time. What I found to be more effective in the past is if I can share my screen with you, that way you can see what I'm looking at, and I know what you're looking at, so that way we can save time in the conversation. So when we're able to put it in their best interests as far as doing the screen share, then they're more likelihood to click, whatever link that you might send them to join that meeting.
Absolutely, and comfortability. That's great. More comfortable for the client, customer, makes them more likely to hear what you have to say. So, let's talk numbers. And I don't really need specific numbers as far as any studies or anything, but let people know the difference between those using the actual type of screen-to-screen selling versus those who are just cold calling or some of the traditional methods.
Well, sure. So, what's interesting as we look at what's numbers and what's working, there isn't any significant research yet, and perhaps I'll be the one that helps lead the charge with it. But when we look at education, and I'm a big fan as someone who takes a lot of classes and learns and also teaches. Anytime we have a conversation with visuals, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, a screen share is worth 1,000,000. So when you actually are able to share your screen, you can dramatically reduce the time in a conversation. I think that in the past, and what we have as far as numbers are considered, someone schedules a meeting for an hour. And that's kind of like the rule is let's see how we can fill up this time in a vacuum in order to talk for an hour, right? Well, the purpose of a meeting, if you have an objective-driven meeting with a results agenda in mind, really what we're trying to do is answer all the questions, take care of business as fast as we possibly can. Because no offense, I don't want to spend time on the phone with somebody who more than I necessarily have to. So when you have visuals, you decrease the likelihood of, sometimes you'll have a conversation of, say, hey, if I email you this document, can you scroll down to the bottom of the page? Keep scrolling down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll back up. Oh, yeah, that button at the top right-hand side of the screen, click on that. No, it's the blue button. No, keep scrolling up. It's the blue button on the top right. Can't you see it? No, you can't see it. Why can't you see it? I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. And
exactly.
So what we do is we kind of perpetuate some of these things. So what I encourage us to look at as far as numbers wise is how can we reduce the amount of time that we're having some of these conversations, but then also increase the value that we provide. And depending on what you want to know, we can kind of go deeper into any one of those.
Absolutely. And for those listening, don't forget, we are going to be giving away a free copy of this book, so stay tuned. We'll let you know how to get that copy here. You don't like those meetings where, those 1 hour mandatory meetings where you kind of just sit there and listen to the boss?
It's not that I don't, don't get me wrong. I like the social aspect of business, but when it comes down to actually getting things done, that maybe this is where the A personality or the driver side comes out, is to say, well, what are we trying to accomplish? Let's get it done as fast as we possibly can. And
Absolutely.
Once you hit that point to where people start you gather that consensus, there's the concept of mental synchronicity, right? Where sometimes if we're on a teleconference, and I'm trying to explain a concept to you, and then you're not necessarily sure what I'm talking about, a conversation can take a lot longer. Or maybe if I even say the bee's knees, and you say, "What is that? Is that I didn't even know that a bee had a knee," or maybe, man, that's a pretty small knee. B, or you could say, well, that's pretty awesome. Well, when you have that screen share, activated, and maybe use a digital whiteboard to confirm some of the answers that somebody's talking about, it increases the likelihood that you comprehend what the other person's saying, and there's a decreased risk involved of maybe miscommunicating something that might be important, throughout that conversation.
Absolutely. I used to get those meetings. I had a boss that would always schedule Monday morning meetings, and I love the social aspect, but when you get into an hour and a half of socializing and then no time to get stuff done, and then in the afternoon they're pushing for, where is it at? I like being able to get to the point, but I think the social aspect is what you're picking up on, with the sharing the screen, using more of the technology, more than just an email back and forth. I think you're bringing some of that social aspect back into the selling process with the digital world. So it's one of the things I really like about this concept.
Sure, Mike. Well, if the purpose of the meeting is to build a relationship, then that's the purpose of the meeting, and that's where you can start to be a little bit more social. But if the purpose of the meeting is to arrive at a decision that it involves a variety of different moving parts, and you have a lot of different stakeholders with their own maybe self-interests in mind, there's no better way to get it done using visuals in a screen shared environment when you just can't physically be there to make it happen.
Absolutely. Now, when you are doing screen-to-screen selling, it is a different type of meeting, different than the phone call, different from the email. And with that, I'm going to assume here there's going to be a different type of follow-up that you need to make with the client or customer. What would you suggest would be a follow-up after your screen-to-screen selling meeting?
Sure. Well, I think when we look at a meeting, let's say it does take 30 minutes, right? Well, after the meeting, do you actually remember everything that's talked about during that meeting?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I wish.
Well, it would be great, right? Because then let's say if we did understand everything that was discussed in the meeting, right, there would be a higher adoption rate of the services that are trying to be passed through or that are trying to be implemented. There would be decreased time in onboarding, throughout the specific process. There would be less buyer's remorse because, again, what we talked about in terms of comprehension, people are more, you remember if you have something visual that you can take away. What happens typically at the end of a teleconference call or just a phone call is you typically have someone send just a summary, maybe there are just a few different bullet points on what are some of the next steps. But if we want to be a little bit more proactive or differentiate our process to where, customers are more likely to adopt, because it's not as new, but it also offers more value, is the concept of the visual summary. Now, a visual summary could be as simple as doing a screenshot of maybe a website that you both looked at. Or what you could do is have the digital annotations, or like on PowerPoint slides when they're all marked up. Or maybe if you watch John Madden football, he's got the telestrator where he's actually freeze framing the screen and he's drawing on the players, the X's and the O's and the arrows and so forth. The annotations act as on top of whatever visuals that you have, whether it's a website or it's a PowerPoint slide or maybe it's a process map. Once you have those annotations on top of that process or visuals that you've created, now what it does is it reinforces the conversation to summarize all the dialogue that you had. So typically we see like in a PowerPoint presentation is 60 slides in 60 minutes. Well, maybe only 5 of those slides were actually necessary because that's what the participant or what the customer wanted. Well, when we get real specific and decrease in the amount of time, maybe through our visual summary, we only share the specific slides that customers want to know about and provide our insight, our expertise on top of those slides using the digital annotations so that we add more value to the process.
Correct. Or you can get into deeper detail about specific questions they may have. You could just pull those out and, give your expertise on that. So, okay, Doug, now all my guests get the last word. Call it the final words. You get an entire minute. You can say anything you want. As long as you're not cursing, I won't cut you off. And anything you want to share with the audience about screen-to-screen selling, yourself, or the process, go ahead.
Sure. Screen-to-screen selling is a mindset before it's a skill set. What we have to do is we have to look as deep down as what are the problems we're trying to solve, and then let's start to match up the process and the technology with it. I think a lot of times, and many of us are overwhelmed, including I'm a little overwhelmed with all the different options that are out there, is that we find technology and then try to find the problems that it's trying to match up with. And many times, as a result, is now we've created new problems because now we have new technology. What I suggest to anybody who's listening is figure out what parts of the sales process or what parts of the meeting process do you want to improve the participant experience, and then start to match up the technology accordingly. I wrote the book Screen-to-Screen Selling in a checklist type of format. There's about 120 checklists you can go a part of the sales process, whether it's before the appointment, during the appointment, or after the appointment. So then that way you can get real specific as far as which areas of the process to improve. You might not need all of it, but maybe there's 1 or 2 chapters you can pick out and start implementing. So we've created this experience for screen-to-screen selling in a multi-channel, multimedia type of experience. So if you like to watch videos, we do our own video podcast. We have it up on iTunes. We have a whole specific website for it. Those are options. We have a visual outline. So the book, there's images that are tied with bullet points that kind of walk through step by step as far as the process. Everything's mobile friendly, so you can actually read it on a mobile device, on an iPad, or even the iWatch. Believe it or not, so the visuals are friendly enough for that. So there's multiple ways of being able to digest the content. The question really becomes is which is the biggest priority in our process right now, and then let's try to figure out on how to optimize it. So the book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Any of the major retailers have access to it. Also available for Kindle version, which benefit of the Kindle is it has the websites inside it, so you can quickly click on it to then link to the specific products or tools that I might mention inside of the book.
Okay, perfect. Now, if you want more information, simply go to the website, Screen-to-Screen Selling, and that's TO, not the number. It's screen-to-screen-selling.com. You can also find it on the one sheet after this podcast. Just go to legalmorning.com, click on the podcast tab. Also, I'm going to have the link to the iTunes Screen-to-Screen Selling, as well as links to the book. So now if you want a copy of this book, Doug has graciously offered to give away a free copy. And in order to get that, simply go to legalmorning.com/screen, SCREEN, legalmorning.com/screen, and just enter your name in there for a chance to get a free copy. And anything else you want to add, Doug? I mean, I really appreciate you being on here today. I think it's important that people do know that you can solve a problem with technology, but you can also create one. I love the fact that you talk about using it to solve a problem, find out what you need to solve your problem, and a great example is this podcast. When I got into podcasting, I didn't just go out and buy all the different software. I said, okay, what is the issue? I need to be able to record people by telephone. Easiest way to do it, the best, most clearest way was Skype. I mean, there's other programs out there, but Skype is the one that I wanted to use. So, you choose your software based on the issue you want to solve.
Yeah, that's great. And also, Mike, this too, is, technology aside, it's a relationship business. So, you're reaching out to me and offering value to me by getting my message in front of your listeners. What we're doing is we're kind of creating this pyramid of growth where we're helping one another as technology, as a strategic lever. And I applaud all the work that you're doing in order to, not just help me, but also help others. So thank you for letting me be a part of that.
No, I appreciate you coming on. I think a lot of people are going to get some great value out of this podcast. So again, you can check out the book at screentoscreenselling.com. You can find it on Amazon, both print, Kindle, every other retailer out there. You can find it on the website, Screen to Screen Selling, or you can also get a link at legalmorning.com. Until next time, this is Mike Wood for Marketing Impact Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Impact Podcast. For a copy of the information from this podcast, please go to legalmorning.com and click the podcast tab. Until next time.